September 13, 2021 meeting of Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkman?
Here.
Trustee Brienne?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Markey?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, we have a proclamation declaring the week of September 20 to 26, 2021 as National Rail Safety Week. Proclamation declaring the week of September 2026-21 National Rail Safety Week in the village of Lake Bluff. Whereas 1,889 rail grade crossing collisions resulted in 678 personal injuries and were responsible for 201 fatalities in the United States during the year 2020. And whereas 1,088 trespassing incidents have occurred in the United States, resulting in 532 pedestrians being killed and another 556 injured, while trespassing on railroad property rights of way during 2020. And whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railroad rights of ways are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of fatalities and injuries. And whereas the International Association of Chiefs of Police, National Operations Lifesaver, United States Department of Transportation, and all local, state, county, and railroad law enforcement officers, first responders, and railroad corporations commit to partnering together in an effort to educate at a national level all aspects of railroad safety, to enforce applicable laws in support of National Rail Safety Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim the week of September 20 to 26, 2021, National Rail Safety Week in the Village of Lake Bluff, and encourage all citizens to recognize the importance of rail safety education. Dated this date. Thank you. Next is the consideration of the minutes of August 23rd, 2021 for our village board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any changes? I hear no changes. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. I do not see anybody here in this room. Is there anybody online who would like to address the board?
There are two people participating in the call. One of them is a consultant at the village, and I'm not sure the other party, but nobody's raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. I say we move on.
Okay.
The village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. Are there any requests to alter our regular agenda order?
Nothing has been submitted.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next item, item 7, our village finance report. This is our warrant report for August 24th to September 13, 2021, and July and August 2021 payroll expenditures. The summary of background and reason of request are expenditure of village funds for payments of invoices in the amount of $477,146.20 for August 24th to September 13, 2021. Expenditures of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $555,562.73 for July 2021 and $314,412.51 for August 2021, for a total expenditures of $1,347,121.44. The reports and documents attached are the warrant report for August 24th to September 13, 2021 for $477,146.20, dated 8/24 to 9/13, 2021. The invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid. All checks with a status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are checks processed manually. And as a second report, fiscal year 2020 to 2021 payroll report. Is there a motion to approve the warrant?
So moved. Second.
Any questions?
I'm just looking at you.
Peter?
Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Briand.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
And Trustee Inkman.
Aye.
Sorry.
Next is our village administrator, Irvin, report.
Thank you. In your packet is some correspondence between myself and Jordan Aaron at Imperial Motors. Sounds like he's, a lot of the reason why car dealerships make continuing investments in their properties is when they're told to do so by corporate, and he's in a holding pattern, and asked the village to extend his zoning relief granted just about a year ago, and certainly seemed a good reason to do so. So I went ahead and did that, and by the code, I share that with you all, and so you'll see this from time to time, but seems pretty standard. So if there's any questions, happy to answer them. The process and the code does provide if you want to do something else, you can do so by resolution, but I don't suspect you do. But nonetheless, here it is. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. No questions?
Nope.
Thus concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is our village attorney's report. Mr. Friedman?
No report tonight.
Thank you. Next is our village president report. This is about the appointment of Mac Chemical and Nanette Barrett to the Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee. So, subject to the consent of the Board of Trustees, the village president appoints member to the village various advisory boards and commissions. Village President Charlot recommends the appointment of Mac Chemical and Nanette Barrett to serve on the Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee. So I'd like to say a few more things about that. As part of your packet, you have the application material for these two candidates. I had the chance to speak at least 1 hour with each of them, and I was very impressed with those two individuals. Now, Administrator Irvin and I talked about our process to actually name people. We get a nomination from our board or from somebody else from the organization, this board. I get to interview these people. I get to forward these applications to you. I get to recommend these people to be the head of that board, for example. In this case, this is Brian and Marina, thank you very much, and we met with them. In this case, Brian and Marina said that they're in a hurry. They need these people, they do not have a quorum, they need those people as soon as possible. In a normal case, we would have a closed session so that we could actually discuss this, and I want to put this process in place, okay? And we would then recommend, as a next step in an open session, to a vote that is actually right now. So in this case, I'm deviating from a process I'm trying to install, asking you to consider these people on paper and to move forward.
Well, I had a chance to look at their qualifications, and they both seem very qualified and willing to serve, and that's the most important.
Thank you.
Agree. I just, go ahead.
I spoke with one of the two and agreed that she seems very qualified, and the qualifications reflected for both of them look excellent, and I'm happy to support them.
And I just wanted to add that I'm always impressed at the level of volunteerism in this community and that people step up to the plate. So if you're new to the community and you're interested, there's a spot for you somewhere.
It is true. Do you get a motion on this item?
You would ask for a motion, yeah.
So is there a motion to accept the appointment?
So moved.
Second.
So we had a number of discussion. Any more discussion on this item? So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Marquis?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Just one thing, if I may, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
As a preview of things to come, there is another seat available on the SEC that has actually historically been given to a student, a local student. And at President Charlot's request, I've reached out to the high school and working with I believe she is the Honors Environmental Program instructor at the high school, has multiple students from Lake Bluff interested, and both co-chair of the SEC, Brian Renner, and Marina Carney asked that they get to interview the students. So that's, there'll be another process with them before you'll see a name come to you, but ideally that student is a junior at the high school so they can get at least 24 months out of them. But I know over the years, both Brian and Marina have commented, and what I've seen is they have been remarkable. I mean, the kids are super informed, very well prepared for meetings, and add just great production and involvement and ideas. It's been really remarkable. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. One thing also I have done is getting knowledgeable about the SEC, this commission, the Sustainability Commission, and I love their charter. And also, not only do I want them to execute on what we ask for, that is recycling water and a lot of things, but for them to also come to ideas with us for things that are important, that might not have come to our radar, but that are important to them for things that are coming. So I am creating myself trouble for our board, where I'm recommending them to be activists for our board, but I think in this very case, it is important for people, because the environment is, we live in this is a tree city, this is a city where we are sensitive to our environment, and we appoint these people, and I think we need to give them some freedom, not all the freedom, but some freedom to be activists for us, to name issues for us, if it is okay with you.
It's great.
Thank you. Next is the acceptance of correspondence.
Part of the consent.
Consent agenda.
So,
The consent agenda includes the correspondence
And the other items.
and the other items listed. So items 11, 12, 13, and 14 are all part of the consent.
okay, so how should I word this?
You say you can read them all by title and
Okay.
then ask for a motion to consider the consent agenda.
Okay, so next is our consent agenda, acceptance of a correspondence. Next, item 12, a resolution approving revision to the Village of Lake Bluff Employee Handbook concerning whistleblower protection. And last is a
Second to last. 13.
13, a resolution revising the village design standards for small wireless facilities. And last is a second reading of an ordinance amending the Lake Bluff zoning regulations concerning yards and lot width for irregular zoning lots.
Need a motion to approve.
So is there a motion to approve the resolutions, the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments on any of these?
Roll call vote.
So hearing none, please call, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne? Aye. Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Next is our item 15, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 replacement lawn tractors and disposal of surplus property. Is there a motion to approve a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Pursuant to the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund Schedule, the village fiscal year 2021 to 2022 budget includes $66,000 for the replacement of 2 lawn tractors with certain attachments that facilitate year-round utility of this equipment. The replacement cost of the 2 tractors with the desired snow removal and lawn mowing equipment is $91,512.86. The current tractors with snow removal and lawn mowing appurtenances will provide $11,900 in trade-in value for a net purchase price of $79,612.86. The attached resolution authorizes the purchase of 2 new John Deere tractors with snow removal and lawn mowing equipment from Buck Brothers of Waconda, Illinois, utilizing a national purchasing cooperative's buying power Sourcewell. The remaining overage of $13,612.86 can be drawn from the Vehicle Equipment Replacing Fund, which has adequate monies available. Public Works Superintendent Jack Terlap will be present on Monday night to answer any questions from the board regarding this purchase. Is Jack
Jake is on the call.
online?
He is.
I think I
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have additional information about this resolution, Jake, please?
It's definitely time to replace these tractors. Both purchased in 2008. They work year round. Sometimes they'll get, close to 30 hours a month in the summertime mowing, and in the wintertime we rely on them pretty heavily to do the sidewalks. And not only to do that, but we use it this summer or this winter when the snow got really heavy towards the end. We actually had these tractors out in the sanctuary with the snowblowers on, cutting the roads back open because we got to the point where we couldn't push the snow any farther. So we're really at a point where these things are really due for replacement, and they're really ready to go.
Thank you, Jake. Any question on the board?
I was just gonna say, I thought, Jake, I saw in the invoice that we're trading in the old equipment. We're doing trade-ins and getting
Correct.
getting a little bit break on the price because of that?
Correct.
Okay.
I had a question about the difference between what was budgeted for it. Did we add some bells and whistles or some, pricing increases that weren't expected?
No, I think the simplest way to describe it was the appurtenances were not included. And if you look at just the
Yeah.
tractor, that's the delta. That's what it
Okay.
is. We didn't get any
Right,
Naugahyde seats and
No,
tricked out metallic paint or anything like that.
okay.
Seal coat.
Yeah.
And so,
A seal coat at the
right.
bottom of them.
so those appurtenances would be things like the blade,
Things that are
Shovel
absolutely, that
snow
he's
and-
talking about, we
Right.
need.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No
Yep.
flames.
No flames.
So if there are no more questions, I assume this is a voice call.
That's a roll call.
It's a roll call.
spending money, yep.
So, clerk, please call the roll. Sorry.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Inkman,
Aye.
Trustee Brienne,
Aye.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Next is item 16, a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction contract with Copenhagen Construction, Inc. of Gilbert's, Illinois, for the Village of Lake Bluff's East Scranton Avenue Streetscape and Paving Improvement Project. Is there a motion to approve a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Through 2021, the village has been planning improvements to East Scranton Avenue between Walnut Avenue and Evanston Avenue and the adjacent section of East Center Avenue. The project includes resurfacing the asphalt roadway, sidewalk replacement, enlarging pedestrian spaces at intersections, installation of festoon lighting at the southeast corner of Walnut and East Scranton, along with certain streetscapes improvements. 2 bids were received, and the lowest bid was from Copenhagen Construction of Gilbert's, Illinois, with a base bid amount of $575,134. The base bid included replacing approximately 2/3 of the sidewalks within the project limits. The bid included an alternate to replace all the sidewalk within the project limit for a total of $625,684. The ABR and village staff recommend accepting the bid alternate and replacing all sidewalk so that the edge and appearance is consistent through the area. The contract requires all work to be completed in 2021, with the exception of the installation of the festoon lights and potentially the asphalt resurfacing. The light would be installed promptly when delivered to the contractor. The asphalt work would be accomplished in the spring should inclement weather preclude completion prior to asphalt plant shutting down for the season. Items not included in the bid that the village plans to purchase through separate contracts includes new benches, waste recycling receptacles, bike racks, and a control system for the lighting. Those items, as well as a construction, engineering, and a 10% project contingency, are expected to cost approximately $110,000, making the project total cost to $735,000. Approximately $210,000 of the village fiscal year 2022 street resurfacing budget is available for this project. The remaining $525,000 is proposed to be funded by general fund revenue sources. The village staff recommends that the village board award the contract to Copenhagen Construction in the amount of $625,000, $684. Any questions?
I just would like to ask, just in case there's questions, the village had utilized its consultant, land use and landscape architect consultant firm Tesca and Associates for this project in developing this plan. They are also the firm that's working on the overall plan for the entire streetscape within the central business district. That consultant, architect and landscape architect, Jody Mariano, is on the call too, if there's questions for her.
Thank you.
I wanted to clarify the cost. Last time we spoke about this back in May or June, we had an anticipated cost. I recall that cost being somewhere around $600,000. Does anybody have record of what that budget was back then?
Jeff, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, we had a couple of meetings where we were adding and subtracting things on the fly, so there really isn't a good paper record of that, but I think your number is pretty close when you look at all the things that are included. And looking at the bid, the overage is in a couple specific items. One is the new wiring to our existing streetlights, which has failed repeatedly, and we're trying to replace that while we're digging up this area of the street. That was a $35,000 higher than estimate, I believe. And the other was some of the festoon lights, the poles and the lighting was about $44,000 over estimate.
And Jeff, is the power supply, this $74,000 for the power supply, is that supporting the festoon lighting, or is that a standalone need?
It's a standalone need for the street lights, but it will also be used to support the festoon. We have a good power supply kind of in the area of the festoon, so not a lot of that is needed to get to them. It's right on that corner, so that almost all of that cost is to go up and down Scranton to feed the street lights.
Okay, so regardless of whether the festoon lighting moved forward, that spend would be required.
Yes.
So how much would be just the festoon lighting above and beyond the light control system? What would be the cost for that?
165.
165 on the pie chart, yeah.
Thank you.
I had a question about like the waste receptacles and the bike racks and the benches. Is there a breakdown of how many items we're getting with those? I didn't see it either. I missed it on the cost analysis.
You know, we had, I think, 8 waste and 8 recycling containers in the original cost estimate. We took those out of this contract because we haven't gone through the process to select those yet. So we have not ordered anything for those items as of right now.
Okay, so 16 total for those was what we were thinking.
Yes.
And then how many bike racks and benches? Do you have any estimates on that, Jeff?
The bike racks, I don't think we had a number on. The benches. Trying to find it.
Why are you
Jody,
doing-
correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 6 or 8 benches.
Excuse me, can everyone hear me? Yeah, I think that is correct. That said, just like Drew and Jeff mentioned, we're currently working with the staff and with the ABR, and we were at the farmer's market last Friday to finalize those items. And so those, as far as we understand, the benches, the bike racks, trash and recycling receptacles would not be selected or installed until after construction is complete sometime next year.
And just so the board's aware, historically, I mean, those trash cans and recycling receptacles, the village has been consciously replacing them like one every year or so because they've been the same model style for several years, and some wear out faster than others, and so we're trading in them out. And there has been a concerted effort to try to get to where it's for every waste receptacle, there's a recycling receptacle. So that's been the plan so far. And so we've been doing that in that style. So some of you go out there look really nice and like, does this even need to be replaced? While others look like we've had to really do some TLC on them to get them looking better.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to follow up and say, I know there's been some discussion about the cost of what we're spending. So I was thinking with those 3 items, if we had to, it could be kind of a rolling thing where over several years we're replacing or adding in bike racks or adding in benches if we know the styles we want to use, and we don't have to do all that cost. I know it's not a huge amount of money. On the pie chart, I think it came out to be, what, $41,000 or so, but if we're looking for a little relief on the cost, we could, that's an area I think we could maybe work a little bit.
I'd be happy to throw in my perspective on this to start the ball rolling with, I'm sure everybody has a point of view here. The first meeting I sat in, it was May, and I think we just pulled up the previous budget. It was about $790,000 prior to May, so back in April. And then we met in May, and the budget coming out of May was about $615,000. I think this is 725, is that right?
735.
735. So it is, about $100,000 higher than what we talked about. This is a lot of money for any community to spend, and this community has a lot of needs. And, we just talked about storm sewer previously, and there are many, many things that are needed. The downtown is a really critical part. It is the center, it is the essence, in a way, in the image of our community. This predates, I know that the ABR reviewed this, I know the previous board reviewed this, and this is what we came up with. I do remember in May we talked about festoon lighting, and I think we determined that we wanted festoon lighting. We kind of questioned the festoon lighting over on the east side, whether that was necessary, and I'm not sure if that's included in this or not. But I think we've gotten to what we talked about back in May with a bit of an elevated, I'm not sure what that is. Is it? Oh, it's Glenn. So there is a slightly elevated price.
Default speaker, default speaker.
I've never seen Foo run like that.
Hold that thought. Yeah, I got to cut to the chase anyways.
I'm sorry about that, Steve.
Oh, do you want me to proceed, or should I
No,
wait for
I
Drew?
think we should wait.
Okay.
Oh.
That was cool.
Nice.
That was,
Okay, I'll try and cut to the chase a little bit more. I think that this project is important to Lake Bluff. I think that it's unfortunate that the pricing is elevated, $100,000 versus where we thought it would be. I don't think there's ever a good time to do this. I don't think the idea of delaying this, and trying to save 10 or 15%, maybe down the line is smart. We don't know that that's going to happen. The one thing I will say is I wish from a lighting standpoint that we had the broader Block 1, and we had a chance to talk about this, Drew, that there was a holistic plan for Block 1 and Block 3, and we want this to look consistent. The tail is wagging the dog a little bit here. When I spoke to Drew, he said, he believes the festoon lighting that we're putting up is what ultimately will be consistent in Block 1 and Block 3, and I am willing to take that risk. So for me, it's a lot of money. I recognize the taxpayers are contributing to this. I believe that this contributes greatly to our village. It's important for our downtown to be functional and beautiful, and I support this.
Thank you.
So Drew and I spoke earlier today because I'd taken a look at the plans. We had a concept plan that was given to us, and then we had the plan that was for the hardware bid. And so I kind of compared the two. And when we saw the concept plan, if you looked at it from the sky down on top of that corner where the festoon lighting is, that was my area of concern, because that is going to be something that's really different. There isn't anything like that now, and it will be something that's really noteworthy. And when you look at it from the sky, it had one of these poles that was mounted in the walkway. And then the next iteration had two of the poles mounted in the walkway because of existing trees. Do we need to do something about the?
Sorry, Barb.
That's okay.
Something's, it'd be nice to see this again,
To see the
To
concept
see-
out there?
No, see
No.
what the cost
Oh,
is now.
what the actual
like
came
what's
in?
changed-
Yeah.
What's changed
Yeah.
now. Because this has festoon light poles of 14 of them, and I don't think that's, how many,
Let's hold until Barbie's,
sorry.
please proceed. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I was concerned about the iteration from the last time we saw it to this time, changes being from one pole in the walkway to two poles being in the walkway. And also the spider web effect of lighting that connect all the strands of the 6 points went from 1 to 2. So it really had kind of an accentuated spider web effect in my opinion. Now, when I look at the festoon lighting, what I think of is it being a continuation of the Lake Bluff brand, which is casual, welcome to my backyard, we've got some lights up, come join us, right? That's what I really like. And what it's kind of morphed into is a little bit more than that. And Drew invited me to take a look at Walnut, who did a streetscape project, and they had some lighting as well. And so I had looked at what they had done, and they had poles that were very similar and different shapes of the lighting. And my takeaway from that is that it was beautiful, that the magical night that I experienced, just seeing probably 200 people eating, and, businesses just thriving, people were drinking, it was just wonderful. But in addition to the festoon lighting, there was some lighting on trees. But it was really, really a nice experience. But what I took away from that is that I think the Lake Bluff version of that is more casual, Lake Bluff, backyard. It doesn't look as planned, it doesn't look as heavy-handed. In my opinion, I think that would represent our brand and who we are a little bit better. So to that end, I kind of proposed getting some white out, taking out those 2 poles that were in the walkway, and all of the lighting that connected to it, and really just kind of simplifying the strings. And just to see what that would look like, because if I hung lights in my backyard, it wouldn't look that fancy, it would be just kind of a few. And so Drew humored me and took it a little bit further and spoke with the consultant.
Yeah, Jody, I don't know if you have, or if you could, can you draw or share your screen showing that modified version? Is that possible?
Let me see if I can. I don't know if I have the ability to share my screen.
We can grant that to you.
And while Drew's doing that, I could just mention quickly, we were the landscape architect for the Wilmette Streetscape, and I appreciated all the comments that were mentioned. Wilmette's festoon lighting orientation, they're basically, each quadrant is a triangle.
Yeah.
And so each one of those festoon arrangements, with the exception of the village green in Wilmette, are all kind of 3 points, and there's a triangle array of a canopy atop. And so we certainly wanted to come up with something that was very different here in Lake Bluff, pulling from some of the architecture of the gazebo. And I think the comment about also making it as casual as possible is something that can be achieved with the sag of the lights, not pulling them so tight. Another place that has festoon lighting that you might have seen is in Evanston at Fountain Square Plaza, and those are very tightly pulled festoon lights. But here in Lake Bluff, and also a little bit in Wilmette, having some sag so that they kind of, are a little bit more relaxed, a little bit swaying in the wind, is another way we can evoke that casual nature.
I think you should have the ability to share, Jody, but just for the record, I asked Trustee Inkerman to go check it out herself, because I had gone there and I felt like I was going to get arrested, like I was who was the weirdo walking around these streets for an hour, going back
Another
and forth.
planner.
But because I was cognizant of, because Trustee Ankerman had mentioned that poll, she had made that comment before, and I was like, I just want to experience it. Do I even notice it? And my own experience, I didn't. I told this to her. I didn't notice it was there. In fact, I had to go back and take pictures to prove to myself it was there, because it's far enough away from the building that you can go walk around it. And I think the same is true in this plan that the ABR recommended. It shows it there. 5 feet off the building and further for at least, I think that's the closest one to the building. And there's still ample space in my eyes, again, my experience walking around it. But I literally had to take a picture to prove to myself I did walk around a pole.
Right. Well, I'm that person. I literally have walked into poles, doorways. I've got bruises to support my story. And I also have a mom who uses a walker. Dogs are always being walked. I mean, we need to be more generous, I feel, just because we want it to be open. And people, some of the comments that we receive from people in terms of, what do you want to see? People wanted there to be, places to eat outside and gather, but people also wanted to be able to have pedestrians go by. They didn't want to be tripping. So, I mean, for me, I really couldn't support a plan that had a pole in a walkway at all. I just couldn't, because I would be black and blue. And I am black and blue. But it also would be, it's visually less cluttered to have fewer poles and fewer connections. And I understand there's a design intent with the gazebo reference, which I think is beautiful. But I think more casual. I think the spider web can be distracting, and it kind of looks like, is this Halloween? There's more room for people, dogs, commuters, walkers, wheelchairs. It'll be a lower cost. I mean, I asked Drew to do a quick and dirty calculation. If we eliminate 2 poles and some lights, the lights aren't the big piece. The poles are a much bigger piece. That could be over $40K. And I feel like it just makes it elegant. We want it to be understated, not, heavy-handed. I also think that, to Steve's point, in terms of not having this, master plan, if we have something that is understated and elegant and isn't so dependent on the geometry of that unique space, it can be replicated or just tweaked a little bit, and it won't look like an afterthought or an add-on. It kind of is easier to blend and implement. So I think that just kind of the casual approach to like Bluff and the branding and who we are and who we want to project that we are, I think that simplifying it, eliminating that visual clutter, making it just simple, it just kind of makes it a lot less expensive and a lot easier for me to support what that final product might look like.
Did you, when you say you and Drew talked about what it would look like if we removed 2 of the poles?
There's a.
Yeah,
an-
Jody, can you do it before I attempt to?
I wish I could. I
Okay.
think that because
I'm
this
going
is a
in.
webinar,
Hang on.
Yeah.
There.
looking through my window here, and I just don't have anything that offers a sharing. Drew, I'm happy to email it to you from this
No,
morning.
I've got it. I was
Okay.
seeing it before I did it. We've had some technical difficulties tonight. And I
I
didn't
can
want to push our
speak
luck.
to it.
Audio.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Would you like me to speak to this, Drew?
Well, you're seeing it, but nobody else
Don't see
is.
it yet.
Oh,
Hang on 1 second.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. I'm being corrected by my IT professional right beside me. Stand by.
That's right.
Hold on. Share screens. 1. There we go. How come it's not giving that screen as an option?
Double click on it.
So she sees it.
Drag it, just drag that on the other side and share that screen. Drag that PDF to show on the second screen. That's it.
Yes.
And then share that screen. Number 2, yeah.
All right. Jody, can you see it?
I can see it. Can you all see it?
We can all see it.
Oh, awesome. Well, Drew, maybe I can ask you to point to things while I talk really quickly. But
You got it.
just like you heard, yes, when we were before you way back earlier this summer, I think June 14th, we had looked at a concept, and that was the colorful plan. And just to kind of let you all know about our process, when we started this project in the summer, it was pretty quick. We had not yet had a topographical survey provided to us yet. It was still in the works, but we still needed to make progress just in the interest of time. And so we did our design work on top of an aerial photograph, which is good enough to get us close, but not good enough to get us construction ready. So the concept plan that you saw was drawn on top of an air photograph. It was close, but then once we went into construction documentation, we did receive the topographical survey, and then we were able to see that we were potentially going to have a few conflicts with existing light poles, existing trees, and we wanted to make sure we were clear of that. So that was the reason for some of the adjustment. But yes, these 2 poles are located, not less than 5 foot from the building facade. So the 1 pole up, I guess, just south of the existing honey locust near the Innovasi building, and then another one to the south of that, just north of the existing plane tree. So when we saw the sketch that came through from Trustee Ackerman, and we really appreciate it, it omitted those 2 poles that are in the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And so we did our version of a sketch based on what we saw this morning. And that's what you see here in red. So this would have the 1, 2, 3, 4 poles. So basically 2 poles that are running parallel to Scranton, and then 2 poles right there running parallel to center. And they would have this trapezoidal shape that would sort of, kind of point into the center of the intersection. We took a couple of liberties with the string lights on top. One of the cool things with festoon lights is that you really do have a lot of opportunity to
Continues.
not that this has to be, but this was just a thought, that the strings could be arranged in such a way so they sort of present themselves to the center of the street, to block 1, in a way can sort of like speak to block 1, so that when block 1 is designed, it could have a series of festoon lights that maybe speak back to these ones here in front of the Innovasi corner. So, you know, there is no absolute right or wrong way to do these. There's always lots of good ways to do them. And we think that this is a very viable solution if the board wishes to proceed this way.
Can I just clarify, we're talking about just the red lines here, so there's no more
Correct.
kind of. Okay. Does that reduce lighting where there will be seating?
So there would be less bulbs overall. The way that this would be specified, the bulbs have different color temperatures. We've selected the lowest color temperature, so it's got the most amber light, and we've selected the bulb spacing to be 18 inches apart. So this arrangement would have less bulbs overall, but that said, they all provide a nice consistent glow to them that even if you're not sitting directly underneath them, you still would be able to appreciate them. So if you were sitting in the tables and chairs in front of the Innovasi's building, you know, along Center Street, you still would feel like you were part of that arrangement. Same thing is happening in Wilmette. There are lots of places in those outdoor cafes where you're not directly beneath the bulbs, but you still feel like you're part of that environment.
And the other thing to consider about it is reduced from what that original plan was, but it's not task lighting. It's, you know, it's kind of like candlelight romantic, you know, we're enjoying, we're visiting. It's that kind of, you know, we're not completing a task, needlepoint or, you know, calculus.
Well, Barbara, you apparently have many talents. It's kind of cool. Does the pricing reflect the scaled down version or the full version?
The pricing that you've seen is the full version.
Okay.
And when we say full version, we mean just this and not, it is at this point excluded the east.
This is the only festoon lighting is only on this corner. The one that was previously by Bluffington's was eliminated previously by this group before it went to bid. Yeah, yeah.
So,
I feel like I should also maybe just interject to speak to the pricing. You know, in the last year or so, construction pricing has really increased. We were using construction estimate costs based on other streetscape projects in the North Shore specifically, so Evanston, Wilmette, Winnetka, Glencoe. But since that time, unfortunately, we're just bidding at a time where things really have skyrocketed, and steel especially has gone up. So I was surprised to see the cost of the festoons up to what they were, because that was not anywhere where they were before.
thank you. Trustee Markey, Trustee Ryder, Trustee Brandt, and Trustee Fisher, do you have comments?
I do have a couple comments. So I think my first comment is I like this new look. I think it's a nice compromise. And I think it reflects Lake Bluff well. So thank you, Trustee Ankman, for coming up with that idea. When I Drew sent out that pie chart earlier, and when I looked through that, there were several things on there that I was like, have to be done, right? The streets and the curbs, the drainage, and now it sounds like the power supply. Those are things that I think we definitely have to do. And the additional sidewalks, I think would be beneficial for pedestrians and people walking through to have nice, uniform, clean sidewalks up there. So that kind of leaves the extras as the festoon lighting, the trash cans and recycle cans, the bikes, the benches. And I think if we go with the smaller scale, the festoon lighting, and save a little bit there, and then we make determinations on garbage cans and recycle cans and the bike racks and the benches, I think we can find a nice compromise and still move forward with the project without the cost being so out of control that we feel like it's an uncomfortable number. But I agree with Steve. I think this is it adds to the ambiance of the village, and I think it also is sort of our welcome and our entrance. I think it's good for our business partners. And I just feel like there's a lot of positives to it, where we can work with economies of scale because we're already doing the streets. So it makes sense to me. I know it's a larger number than we anticipated, but I feel like it's a good time to move forward on it. That's my comment.
Thank you. Trustee Ryder or Trustee Bryant or Trustee Fisher?
I've sort of lost track a little bit of the costs. Stephen, I had just pulled up what we saw in May, and it was 611. And what are you saying, Jody, that was based on prices, last year's prices, and all we've seen is that they've been going up lately? I
So
can't really
I can
place.
speak to this, to the streetscape items, and by the streetscape items, Tesco was involved with the festoon lights and the benches, the masonry seat wall. There were other costs that the engineer was developing associated with the roadway work and the utility work and the concrete work. I don't have as good a handle on those. I would default to Jeff on those things, but for me personally, it was the cost of the
Uh-oh. Cost of the festoon.
Cost of festoon lighting came down great.
So let's do this.
It
There
must
was a-
have.
But they want to go and initiate that?
So that is a significant jump.
Jody, yes. Could you please back up about 20 seconds? We lost you at the cost of,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I've been losing you guys a little bit too, and it might be my Wi-Fi, but can you hear me now?
yes.
So
you.
This project was designed by Tesca and also by the village's consulting engineer. Tesca was responsible for the festoon light poles and the masonry seat wall and the layout of site furnishings for a future phase. The consulting engineer was responsible for roadway work, concrete work, utility work. And so I don't know enough about how the engineering costs were put together to speak to what was provided earlier this summer. However, I could tell you that the cost that we anticipated for festoon poles based on other recent projects was lower than we saw in this recent bid. I think we estimated about $14,000 per pole, and the bids came in at higher than that. I think at 20.
And am I correct that I'm seeing on the Anchorman edition, we're seeing?
It's kind of a name.
Am I seeing 4 poles total? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. 4.
Yeah, so 2 fewer poles and strings.
The old one that came to 611 was 14 poles, so
Correct. At that time, we were looking at additional festoon poles
Right.
at the Bluffington corner, and then when we met in June, those poles at the Bluffington corner were removed from the project.
So I guess what I'm missing is is another column on this, in this May or June spreadsheet that gives us now what we're looking at because of the significant increase, but yet the significantly fewer lights, for example, so that I can fully understand it. That said, I'm generally in favor of this. I think while we are doing work on the sidewalks, we need to continue to upgrade our downtown. It is a big reason that people come here and come back again. And this is an opportunity to do what, when we come down to it, is relatively modest improvements. It doesn't cost a modest amount, but it's a modest improvement, certainly not overboard.
I could speak to the one question that I heard, which is, what is it that you're looking at in terms of costs and what does that reflect? So in the bid set, we had 6 festoon poles in front of the Anabasi corner. And so those 6 poles and all the string lights associated with them were part of the bid documents that were issued to contractors, and contractors provided their costs. The red line version that we just looked at on Drew's screen earlier tonight was a back and forth sketch session that just happened this morning. So we
I
don't have
understand.
pricing for that. Yeah.
Right, that's not that's not where I'm seeing I'm just looking at an old document. Do we have this updated? And by this, I'm looking at, I think, our June board packet with
Jeff, do you have that bid tab and compare
item
it to?
8A. I think it's the June, Kate raised the point earlier, and I think others have raised it, that the seems like we're scaling down our costs or our vision, but we're not simultaneously scaling down the cost. So that's what I'm trying to get my head around. I appreciate that the construction costs have gone nowhere but up lately. I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to see is how that lines up with the last thing we gave the green light to.
So if you look at, I think it's page 103 in the packet, the bid tab,
Okay.
there is an engineer's estimate, which was our final estimate of 529, including the alternate one.
Okay, I'm trying to catch up with you.
Yeah. Jeff, if you're there, please share your screen.
Here's the new one.
Do you have it printed out?
Oh, here.
Why did I not? Oh my gosh, okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
Want some cheaters?
yeah, item 16. I'll find item 16, thank you.
Drew, if you enable that, I can share my screen.
You got it.
There it is. Well, I thought I looked there, but
Yeah, so this is in your packet, if you can see the bid tab from our bid
there it
opening.
is.
Yeah, we have this column engineer's estimate, so that
Okay,
did change
there
a
it
little
is.
bit. Last time we talked about this was before design. There's a little more quantity in sidewalk we ended up putting in, and a little more in the drainage along Center Avenue to try to go around that tree. Generally, the things, at least as Jody pointed out, she was taking care of the poles and the seat walls, and Keywald Hamilton's our other consultant that was on this job, and myself were looking at the street. Anything with a pipe ended up pretty high. So the storm sewer work ended up much above estimate, as did the item 25 on this list, 1.5-inch underground conduit galvanized pipe was way over what we would have expected. It's $53 a foot for an 1.5-inch pipe buried. That's something that we've been seeing in a lot of things. It's just the cost of pipe is skyrocketed. And I don't know that that's going to come down or not.
Yeah,
So are we actually over budget?
thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure how I missed this before. This is exactly right. Thank you.
Are we actually, Jeff, over budget then on the actual construction of the street, like redoing the street? Is that where we're seeing a lot of increased costs, it sounds like?
Some of it is on the street. I think we had $275,000 in the bid on street. I think that's about $20,000 or $30,000 more than if you add up the estimate on it.
Okay.
Trustee Ryder,
I'm done.
you're done, thank you. Trustee Fisher, Trustee Bryant, would you like to provide comments?
I would say that one of my points of confusion is that I was up at the farmer's market on Friday, and Tesca's undergoing a master plan, and the survey results that we got are for that. So I think this is cart before the horse in terms of everything over and above the real infrastructure. I'm not sure why we're paying them to do a survey for the downtown streetscape master plan and then voting on executing a part of it. I don't know if Wilmette did it in that piecemeal fashion, but it doesn't appear so. So I think that's a little disjointed, and I'm not in support of doing that because I think it's difficult to achieve cohesion when you do that. Secondly, like it or not, the analysis of the actual use of these lights bears out that they won't be used very much. So from an economic development standpoint, that's not a good argument to make. But when I was up at the farmer's market, I had an interesting conversation with Jody, and one of the questions that I think that we have to discuss is, since it sounds like everybody is in favor of moving forward with this, what does this space represent? Because it seems to me like, we've talked about this before, at least Joy and I have brought this up. There is a ton of furniture up there that I can barely get past most of the time, and to be quite frank, it drives me crazy. And Jody and I talked about the question, and they had a nice board and people were writing in ideas, and one of them was that if we get rid of this big planter that's there, that's currently obstructing the walkway, that this is public, this space, and it's public seating. And it's adjacent to seating that is owned by the proprietor of this business. So I think that is a potential question. We have to determine once and for all, what is the use of this space? Because it seems to me that this primarily inures to the benefit of just one business owner, and there's gonna be furniture creep out into this space, and then it doesn't become public anymore. And I'm not okay with investing this kind of money. I'm all for supporting businesses to a degree. He already has lights up. He's doing fine, I'm sure. But this is just a ton of money over and above what's absolutely necessary. And the feedback I've gotten is not supportive of the lighting at all. People just don't see it as a necessary expenditure at this time. They're fine with the street. They're fine with even removing the garden, which I'm in favor of as well. But the lighting just seems to people to just be, like I used before, the metaphor, if your roof is leaking and you're decorating the living room, let's fix what needs to be fixed, finish the survey, get the results, and if anybody bothered to look at the preliminary results of what to change uptown, I didn't find a single response that said lighting, not one. It was parking, 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 oh, and parking. But not one person that I saw, and there are hundreds of responses, and I gave it a more than cursory review. Not this. So I'm always profoundly aware of the fact we're spending other people's money, and the people I've spoken to just don't support this. They support some of it, and certainly the street and what Jeff's alluded to with the electrical, that's all necessary, and I think we can justify it. But I think we need to let Tesca finish what they're doing and get a sense of where people really are before we haul off and do this. This can all be added at a later date. We don't need to do this right now. And steel costs are through the roof. It's inane to do this right now. The other thing is the 735, or whatever the bottom line number is, represents materials. What are the fees? I'm sure the engineering fees are substantial. What are the Tesca fees? What are all the fees? We're gonna get up over 800,000. So we're looking at the material number. We're not looking at pluses. And I get what everybody's trying to the feel good, but give me the numbers, give me the number of hours this is actually going to be in use. And sometimes, guys, this town rolls up at 10, and there are lights there right now. That's not gonna change. So when we're talking in that sense, I think we need to let Tesca finish and do what we only need to do. And that will reduce the cost substantially. We can justify that. We can find the money. And we can then attack the downtown as a whole instead of this disjointed manner in which we're voting on something while a survey is taking place. That makes no sense logically to me at all. And I can't vote yes for it if we're gonna do it that way, because it just doesn't make sense.
Well, I can follow up with some thoughts, and I'll keep it pretty brief because I think a lot of the important, wise things have been said, and I can't, add too much more. But I will say that I'm surprised actually, because I came in very excited and supportive of the festoon lighting. And Kate, you are saying things that speak to me, but primarily because I'm concerned with the cohesiveness, and I was supportive of all the festoon lighting, and that made it more cohesive. And now we've whittled it down to this one area, which I have to say, I agree. Where I'm crossing with you or agreeing with you is the concern of keeping this public when it's really in a space that's going to be primarily Innovasi based. That being said, I'm actually very excited about the upgrade. I think downtown is charming, but I think we really do need that boost, and I'm interested in doing it I want to be efficient with our construction. So the masonry seats, the benches, I think we really need that. I want to see more places for us to be sitting casually. The lighting at this point, I can't believe I'm saying this, I could take or leave, but specifically I could take or leave it if we can easily go back. It seems like, can we easily go back and place these poles? Whereas the rest of the projects, I'm really excited about the bump outs and the masonry benches. And I think our budget is in a good place where we have money set aside for that. And I want to see it done. I do. Again, if it were up to me back then, I liked the idea of the crosswalk in the middle. I thought that was that would have been really good for where we were. And I actually did like the idea of adding more casual seating, more places to congregate. But one thing I love about the downtown area is I love the lights that we put up in the green. That's us putting up our own lights that I would assume it's a low cost. And that sticker shock of what it costs for these festoon lights, I mean, I get it. I kind of am feeling it. But finally, how I'll cap off what I'm thinking is, I'm just not seeing reducing them making a big enough change in this overall project's budget. So even if we cut them out, we're still over budget. I don't feel that it's to the point where we're in a squeeze where it's going to impact the well-being of our community and our budget. And I'm very supportive of the project as a whole. Otherwise, as I said, I'm really excited about creative, unusual places for us to sit casually and convene.
It's always been. I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, the woman from Tesca's name?
Jody?
Yeah, Jody. You know, one of the questions that a number of us have brought up is the concern over the lighting being, the cart before the horse, being holistic with Block 1 and being consistent with Block 3. And since Tesca is also working on the broader plan, is there any concern about putting what we'll call the Trustee Ankerman's reduced plan fitting in ultimately with what might be done down the road with Block 1 and Block 3? I mean, there's only so many configurations. Do you have perspective on this being an outlier and causing a problem?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that question. You know, this is a bit of an unusual process. I mean, we don't always work on a small section first and then take a broader step back and look at the master plan. Of course, in Lake Bluff, because of the roadway work, the opportunity presented itself. And so that's the reason for the process that we've been working on. That said, we think that there are lots of opportunities to use the lighting pattern, especially the redlined version that we've talked about that was generated today, to kind of inform some of the other streetscape choices that could happen in Block 1. One of the things that we've heard a lot about, especially on Friday during the farmers market, was that there needs to be made better use of the Metro parking lot. And so it's a really short walk, but you do have to get past the Sheridan Road crossing, which has to be dealt with in maybe a little bit of a safer way. But using vertical things like additional lighting, and it could be the festoon lights in some configuration off of the IDOT right-of-way, of course, But if it were placed on Scranton in Block 1 in such a way so that as you were exiting the Metro lot, it would draw your eye east and make that feel like a more pleasant walk and maybe not such a distant walk, could be one of the things to kind of help unify it, but also encourage people to, have a little bit of wanderlust and kind of wander around. I think that's something that we're seeing happen in Wilmette, especially, is that people are just strolling more. They're just spending more time. I also wanted to make another point about the lighting in the survey. So I heard comments about the survey, and yes, today we're at 819 responses to this survey. There's been a lot of great response. We have a question in the survey, and I don't know if any of it's been published yet, but we can always provide interim results through staff. There's a question here, I think it's number 7, where we provided a list of items, a list of streetscape amenities, and we asked folks to rank them in order of importance. There were 10 of them, and they include things like cafes, benches, plantings, lighting enhancements, bike racks, etc. And lighting enhancements ranked in the top 4. So we've heard some feedback that people really like the lighting. When we were at the farmers market, we tested the idea with some folks, and the folks we spoke with at least were excited about the festoon lighting. They thought it could add a layer of warmth to the downtown, especially in the winter months when it gets dark so early. I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel
Jody,
like
I'll just follow
your
up really
view.
concisely. In your opinion, are we doing a disservice by putting a small section in what will be a broader holistic plan later?
Oh, no, you're not doing a disservice. I think it would end up becoming an element that needs to be incorporated in other locations in some fashion, but no, I don't think this would be a disservice in any way.
Thank you. Trustee Markey?
I just had a couple follow-up things that I forgot to say earlier. The first one was with the lighting, and Jody just touched on it when it gets dark earlier. But also for families with younger kids, that lighting would be great to have that lighting up there. It gets so dark up in that corner, and especially up by the green. So when activities are going on at night up there, it really does get quite dark up there. And I know some of the people I've spoken to that have younger kids would welcome having more light up there. So that's just one thing, and I kind of forgot to mention it earlier. And then the other thing is that I know we would love to have a big plan, and we would love to do it all at once. But the reality of that is that right now we're contemplating a small area at a certain cost, and the idea that we would now wait another year or 2 or 3 or 4 and do all of it at once at a much larger cost, I don't foresee that happening. Like, I just, we've done some beautification things this year. Some of them were gifts from the 125 committee. Those were plans that were made in 2007. So 13, 14 years that they've been trying to do things. So I just feel like Taryn said, we're in a pretty strong financial situation right now, and if we can move ahead and do this, I think that we should make every effort to do it in a responsible way.
I would just follow up with the comment made about Metra. I heard many times, and Joy and Barbara heard this too, because they've been sitting in this room, and Regis, you too. People aren't going to do that. You can talk to Derek at Bluffington's. His customers aren't going to do it. So if we're going to try and make this a destination, then we better come up with better parking than we have. Wilmette has substantial parking, not just at their metro station. I lived in Evanston for 15 years and spent a lot of time in Wilmette. So we don't have the parking, especially with Block 1's situation as it is today. It's not responsible to ask people to cross a state highway at night. And it's not, to your point, Joy, not well lit. We can't possibly make this investment and then expect people to park at the metro station. That just isn't a realistic expectation, and come on down, but by the way, you've got to hoof it, and you've got to cross Sheridan Road, where people, by the way, are decelerating from 50 miles an hour to 35. So we need to be mindful of that. I just think that's crazy.
I'd like to actually comment on this very point. I used to drive my daughter to the train every night and every morning. And the thing I've noticed is people coming from Baxter and Abbott Labs and the medical school on buses would get on the bus coming from their destination, and instead of boarding the train, would walk on the other side of the street to the restaurants and the brewery to either pick up beer or to stay at the brewery. So it's a pattern that is already happening. We're already there, people crossing and
Right.
enjoying our downtown.
Yeah, I know. My dad commuted for 50 years, so I get it. People cross the street. What I'm talking about is at night. We're talking about lights and lighting at night, and people have been drinking alcohol, and we're asking them to cross the state highway. Personally, I just think that's a bridge too far. With the exception of Kenilworth, there isn't a single North Shore community between here and Evanston without a substantially large municipal parking lot that is not a metro station. We're the only ones, and so is Kenilworth. Everybody else has a substantial, I'm not talking about 12 spots, I'm talking about 30-plus spots. We're the only ones. So I don't see that as a solution. And I just feel like this is just, again, I guess my question for Jody is, did Wilmette approach their downtown streetscape this way? Did they do it in a piecemeal fashion?
So the Wilmette
Doesn't
Streetscape,
look like it.
the Wilmette Streetscape got a couple of grants. They had an ITEP grant for $1 million. They also had an ITEP grant, and it was planned as a full downtown plan. And I happened to get onto the meeting a little bit earlier this evening and overheard part of the finance committee's discussion. And I think Jeff had made a point that, you know, when when a full plan is created, it kind of puts communities at the front of the line to get grants. And so that's what Wilmette had done. So, you know, everybody's a little bit different in the way that they approach streetscapes. You know, Winnetka, on the other hand, has been doing it street block at a time. And so, you know, that's the way that their capital program is working. But they started with a full master plan, and they've been building out pieces as they go.
Yeah, and to that point, and Trustee Marquis made this earlier, the village's streetscape plan that has been in place is that 2007 plan that we know doesn't work because we experienced it on Block 1, right? That the bluestone, the tumbled paper, all that's the plan we went to when we said we're going to redo the curb, and said, well, we know we don't want to do that. And that's how we kind of became this sprint, and we knew it would be this, and it was not the ideal process, as Trustee Briand is pointing out, because that's not what we normally would have done. But it was a result of timing and the result of having a plan that we knew was stale and not workable.
Right, so I guess my question that begs is, why not in the interim, have we not gone back to the drawing board and just done another master plan and jumped off from there? This just seems like we've been walking along since 2007, doing nothing, and then off we go with this one-off thing, and we're still working on a master plan. Well, it isn't a master plan because part of it will have been done. So we're currently paying Tesca to do all this work and take this survey, and there's a paid Facebook thing and all this other stuff, and then we're gonna haul off and go, whoop, oh, we're gonna do this one thing, and then when you get all the survey results, we're gonna come back and finish the what? I'm sorry, that's just not how I work. I think that doesn't make any sense to me. It might make sense to everybody else, but I'm just saying, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I just think we live in an imperfect world. Like, just if we could say we need municipal parking and we're gonna take all that row of housing and make municipal parking
Block
lot
3.
before it was built, you know?
No,
I'm just saying, we're living with the history of where we are. And I feel like we're making good decisions based on where we are. And I'm excited to move forward.
But it doesn't justify the expense for this downtown master plan then. I don't understand. If we're doing one-offs, then why are we paying Tesca all this money to conduct this survey? For what? That doesn't, these are the things people are asking me, you guys. It's not just me. These are people calling me and texting me saying, I don't understand. What is the purpose? I mean, if you read Mr. Stolzenberg's letter, it lays it out. The timing is incredibly odd. I find this incredibly odd.
It is not. It is actually a process we have been pursuing. We have had meetings on that, and those are things we have been discussing, including festoon lighting. We have had long conversation, and I think that was actually my first board here. It is not a news.
Oh, no, this isn't new. I'm not suggesting this is new. I know back in May we discussed this, and I was incredibly skeptical then. I just think window dressing, and we just sat here and talked about these incredibly
So I don't,
expensive problems, and I don't see
So I
the
don't agree with
economic benefit to us.
I don't
from
agree
this.
with that. I am going to speak on that. I believe that we believe in extraordinary time. People are stuck at home, and we're doing everything we can to get people outside of their houses in a safe way outside, outdoor, okay? And we're also trying to, frankly, Kate, I don't know how to justify that financially with clear numbers from a quantitative standpoint. All I know is I have a business community that needs people to visit them, and for that, we need to sustain what has happened in our community for the past year and a half, that is, people are outside. The conversation I've had with many people around here is, if you were here in 96, and that's when I moved in, the video store had nobody at 5 p.m. It is a different story today. And I want to sustain that. We have good things happening, we have good businesses, and frankly, if a festoon lighting keeps people dining outside, I'm all for the festoon lighting. Okay, that is my justification. This is really where I want to sustain our community. To your point, stormwater is number one. I am not quitting on that. This is my most important item as a person, having lived here 30 years, somewhere there. And I don't want people to get hurt. I don't want, but people I've talked to say, I'm being flooded every 2 years. Okay,
You're mad.
that is not acceptable. That is number one. Number two is sustaining our community, our business community. And you know what? Okay, $150,000. Okay, $150,000. That's what it's going to be. Guess what? If it was a return on investment, that would be several times that. That's all I want.
Okay, well, I'll just make 2 points and then I'll be quiet. First of all, talking about outside, we're talking about, so I'm a landscaper. The final freeze date is May 17th. So the average temperature in May here is 50, in the 50s. We've historically gotten snow as late as May 17th. So we're talking about all of June, all of July, all of August, and September. So that's 4 months, maybe the last 2 weeks of May and a couple weeks in October. The rest of the year, nobody's sitting outside. So $150,000 is a ton of money to me, personally. So I don't look at it as meh.
Kate, you would.
It's a lot. All I'm saying is, it's for a little bit. I know, I'm going on and on. That's what people put me here to do, is to advocate for them, and the people that I'm advocating for don't support this. So I'm speaking not for myself, but for people that have gotten in touch with me. It's also 3%. Restaurants represent 3% of our sales tax revenue. They don't represent 60 or something. So we're not Highwood. This is a really small thing. And I think in terms of economic return, the majority of the year, these will not be used. That's all I'm saying.
So I do not agree with that. I believe
Who's
that
sitting outside in January?
I do, and I actually run outside, and I'm here outside, and I've been drinking beer in January.
Okay, well,
One
they're
thing
not-
I'd like to say that is actually important is people buy houses because they like downtown, and people downtown
I cry
stay here
uncle.
to buy houses. I think that actually is important.
Nobody's sitting outside Innovasi, and as Jody just called it, the Innovasi corner, so I'm sure they'll be populated with furniture of his. Okay.
So let me kind of mediate in between the two positions here, because I think there's, Kate's advocating for people who've contacted her, and everybody else here advocates for different pockets of communities. So Joy mentioned the community that I'm kind of in, which is the younger children, and the darkness I brought up when we first discussed the lighting. I want more lighting. I just said it. I wanted all the lights. Give me all the twinkly lights. And I also have to say that I think we all have this, we all love our village. We love its charm, but we also get blind to what it looks like. And I'm sorry, we keep talking about it, but there are imperfections and eyesores. The road looks bad. It looks terrible. It needs to be fixed. It's a mess. The sidewalks are a mess. And, I disagree, Kate. I sit outside all year long, and now, especially this last year in COVID, we found ourselves getting creative and having to be outside more. So I want the downtown to look good, and that's what people are echoing back to me. My community is saying, hi, what are you guys doing about that, you know, the eyesore that is Block 3? It's ugly, it's empty. And, say that again?
I said, I just think that's not an eyesore, but that's my personal opinion.
Let's get focused, let's be focused.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it is. It's empty, empty storefronts don't help our community. I mean,
Right.
I think we can all agree on that. Empty vacant buildings are not good for a downtown area.
excellent.
They're not.
So
But-
guys, I want to move on to that conversation.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is Kate's passionate, and I don't think anyone should shut down what she's saying. It's important, and we're here to have these lively conversations. And it's not our job to convince Kate, okay? But it is our job to make difficult decisions, many that will revolve around a budget. And if we didn't have Kate pushing and asking the important questions, then we wouldn't be doing it right.
And-
That's how I'll leave it.
And to be very clear, I do respect Kate's position. I believe that Kate has important points, okay?
I'm right
I
here.
have one person online. No, sir, I'm
He's
very-
responding to me because I said it, but yeah.
So I have at least one person online who wants to make a comment,
Maybe, perhaps.
maybe. Do we have a guest on our webinar willing to make comments? If so, please raise a hand
Yes.
on the, so you have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Hey, this is Mark Stolzenberg. Thank you for piping me in over the speakers this evening. I appreciate it at this late hour and for your service. So I submitted a letter, and I'm not going to rehash what's in the letter because you've read it, and I know it's been the subject of discussion. I think 2 major points here. Number one, let me step back for just a moment. I agree, I think we all agree, that our downtown's a special place. And I think we all agree that we can use some special gathering places in our downtown. And that trying to make our downtown as friendly for our populace as possible is a good thing. It builds community, it gives us a place to gather and meet. And that's something that we should want for our community. Public spaces where we can meet, gather, and enjoy each other. And when I say public, I mean public and not the extension of a dining room of a restaurant. I heard Trustee Brian's comments about our public rights of way being cluttered with dining furniture. And I hope that if this plaza is built at Scranton and the corner of Center and Walnut, that it remains public space. And I think that's a very justifiable investment that will do a lot of good for our community. That said, I think our community also has a lot of needs, and I think we need to be more carefully evaluating those needs. And that brings me to my first major point, which is the process here. I don't understand why a survey was publicized on August 31st, 9 days before a draft construction contract was published for the village board's consideration. It seems to me consistent with Ms. Brian or Trustee Brian's comments before, and what I put in my letter, that we have this backwards. And I don't understand how you are legitimately getting public opinion, right? When this has been a matter of discussion now for over 6 months by our village government, in 9 days before a construction contract is published, you then go and get feedback from the public. I think the time to get feedback from the public was back when we started, started thinking about this issue. And I think the time to start asking the public about what do we want for our community was then, not on the precipice of executing a construction contract. And I just don't understand how or why you go about it that way. Perhaps I'm missing something. I'm not trying to be critical here, but I just don't understand why you do it that way. Second, look, we have limited means, right? We have a tax base that hopefully will grow, but a bottom line number of $735,000 for basically one block of our community, granted an important block of our community, is a big investment. And I think we really ought to be asking questions about.
Mark, can I stop you for a second? Can you close your
Absolutely.
comment in the next minute, 60 seconds? Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. We need to prioritize. we have flooding problems. It costs $735,000 to fix Lincoln Avenue. Isn't somewhere else in our town that has flooding problems worth $735,000? Aren't our neighbors worth that? What about our pension fund? I'm all for targeted and responsible improvements to our downtown. I think this is a lot of money, and I really think you ought to think twice about spending your money on this, spending our money on this. Appreciate your service. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I believe we have another person online willing to speak.
Not sure. There's another participant in our virtual meeting. I'm not sure if you wish to speak. If so, please raise your hand and I will get you into the conversation.
Okay, so if we no longer have any comments,
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
a short comment?
I just wanted to see if there's any response to the use of this space, how we can protect it being community.
Fair point.
I can
That's
answer that.
exactly where I was going to.
Yeah, so the village has a process by which persons wanting to use the public way and actually the village has automated it over the years because so little has changed from year to year about restaurateurs using the space. But the village has control about wanting to end that or change that. And so given this activity, obviously there's going to be a great interruption for the time during the construction and they'll have to get adjusted. And we can simply go back and meet with those restaurateurs and ask them to submit a new plan and the board will have a chance to weigh in on that.
But in terms of protecting that space under the lighting on the corner, that has not historically been available to anyone. It was a garden. And so it will now open up. And I agree that it should be public,
Yeah.
not these restaurateurs get to have their tables. And if you're at that table and you didn't order their food, you must now leave. This needs to be, anybody can go there. It's open, it's public. You can do your homework there. You can play with your kids there, whatever. That's public space.
Yes.
That's where the public investment is being concentrated. And how do we protect that?
I think the simplest method is to have an agreement, an arrangement with the restaurateurs about where their furniture can go and where that doesn't go. Obviously, that it migrates over time, and customers will pull tables to where they want to sit, and that happens all the time.
Yep.
But I think it becomes incumbent upon those restaurateurs, and the village makes that clear, that they're in charge of managing that, and that they run the risk of losing privileges, more or less. I mean,
Right.
that's the risk.
Right.
Can I ask a question about this, the lighting? I think that's the real rub, isn't it? The lighting?
Sounds like it.
I think because, I don't know, Kate, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that built in, the benches, the work to where the garden is right now, removing that garden, et cetera. Is there, one of the reasons that I was in favor of the lighting even an iteration or two ago was because of the opportunity was here to put the wiring in. So we needed to do it now or the next time we replace the sidewalk. Is there a way to do the wiring? I know this sounds silly, but, and then rather than put the street lights there, just cap it? I understand that sounds kind of silly, but is there a way that you can pre-wire it for when we do this grand plan, that we won't have to tear up the street to do the wiring at that point? Is there any way to, without putting the lighting in now, to get the wiring set for the future state?
So the existing power is in right next to the crosswalk. It's kind of actually pretty close to where one of the festoons is going to go. So when you was asked earlier about the cost for the wiring, if it was just for the streetlights or for the festoons, we talked about how it's kind of right there anyway. You would have to, you could run it around the grassy area and leave it in place. That really isn't too expensive to rip up a couple sidewalk squares and put it in later. The bigger issue would be if the ones want to be in the sidewalk that Trustee Ankerman said, she didn't want those two in the walkway. If you want to do those later, those are a much bigger deal. because they're in concrete. I said running it through the grass later would be more expensive than doing it now, but it would be doable.
Because it does seem to me that the lighting, we've kind of scaled back to a point that it's, I think it would be additive, but it would be unusual to have it just in this one.
So
Spot.
I am going to put something on the table.
Okay.
I am going to suggest 2 votes. The first vote is going to be for resurfacing the asphalt, sidewalk replacement, and enlarging pedestrian spaces at intersection installation, not installation of festoon lighting. That's my first vote, and my second vote is installation of festoon lighting. Okay? What do you guys think about that?
I like it.
I think this is what I've been hearing for the past half an hour. I think we all agree on restoring our streets, our streetscape minus the light, and there is the light.
Well, it depends on who makes the motion, what that looks like, whether it's Plan A or Plan B, right? What's the lighting, whoever makes the motion can.
So after we make a motion, is there more discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Can I make a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we hold 2 votes. One is for all of the improvements minus the festoon lighting. The second would be to take a vote to approve the festoon lighting presented by trustee Ankman. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, so that's your motion?
And I
That's my
second it.
motion. I guess I can't ask for a second.
Could we ask
don't-
Jeff one
Right.
question, though,
What-
before we do that?
You don't need a motion to say you're going to have 2 motions.
Okay, he's just making one motion.
You're just making that
need
motion.
I'm
to
making
make
one
the
motion.
Making that
the
motion.
actual motions, but we don't have to go through the motion to make the motions.
Do I have to talk anymore, Peter?
But I do
So you
have,
can discuss what the village president said about whether you want to do those 2 motions, and somebody that can then make the individual motions themselves.
So did you just make the motion then?
I did.
All right, and I seconded it.
No, no.
No?
No.
He made a motion that we're going to do these 2
Oh,
motions.
Do your motion again and just say. Do it again.
Are you
So you can
moving?
do one motion or you can combine them.
I would,
No, no. You can't combine them.
No, what I'm saying, he can make a motion to approve everything but the lighting and do trustee Ankman's plan. That's my motion. He could say that. But
Mr. Ankerman's plan on,
the festoon lighting.
that's different than what Regis said.
I understand, but
you
you
that.
could do that, yeah. Or you can make your first motion dealing with everything but the festoon lighting.
Let's do that.
I will make a motion to do everything except the festoon lighting.
Second.
There we go.
Now there's discussion on that motion.
So, and you had a question for Jeff, Kate?
I do, I want to, so festoon light pole and string lights is line item 30. Is there any other line item that would be related to that, the cost of which would be reduced by eliminating the festoon light pole and string lights?
Yeah, I believe it is line 31 is the concrete foundation. Those are for the lights. Those are bid by the foot of depth, but if you took 2 poles off, you take 1/3 of that off. I just want to add quickly though, we have a construction bid, so it's not exactly a la carte anymore. But they did say that we could delete some or all of the festoons and they would still honor the rest of their bid. But also, if you could clarify if this would be to replace all of the sidewalks, the alternate one or not, that would be helpful.
Alternate one.
I would
Was
say,
the
I
removal
understood the
of all the
motion to be
sidewalks.
everything, to do 100% of the sidewalks.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Jeff,
So,
can I ask one more question to Jeff?
sure.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Jeff, I had one more question about the festoon lighting. So if we take the festoon lighting out now and we wait until later, will it actually increase the cost because we won't have the economies of scale because we already have people out there working, putting in new sidewalks and doing all that work already? Because we're essentially restarting then, we're gonna have to go in and rip up the grass and put in the poles, and are labor costs gonna be that much more expensive?
There will be a little extra cost. You'll have to rip up some things you put in this, as you cross the sidewalks, they can either try to bridge under it or remove a piece of sidewalk and replace it. It's not, because this is, the prime bidder is Copenhagen, they would have a subcontractor to do the electrical work. And this work kind of does stand alone. If you came back later, I think you wouldn't pay quite the punishment for redoing it as you might for some other things. But it would add some cost. And, you know, if the steel price came down in the polls, you might end up even, but I'm not a gambler, so I don't know what, if you can count on that happening or not.
So Jeff, the cost of the festoon lightings for 6 poles was $165,000. Can we anticipate what the cost would be for the reduced scope festoon lightings on the corner?
Generally 2/3 of that, and they are unit costs for the bases and for the poles. I don't know what the length of string would be. There could be some quibbling about, you know, the string and the lights themselves are considered incidental to the poles. So if you change that ratio a little bit, then
Talking about
there's-
115,000, 110 to 115,000.
Yeah, I mean, give or take a little bit, but yeah, you would take roughly 1/3 off the price.
If I may.
Okay, so, okay, I will entertain a couple more, one question, but I think we need to proceed.
Sorry, we have a lot of questions.
All right, any more questions? Last
A comment is that the optionality for a grand plan down the road is worth something. And it may be worth that rework cost that Jeff was just talking about if we have a more or less blank slate from a lighting perspective to work on this going forward. So that's where I am.
Okay, so our motion was everything except the festoon lights. Okay?
That's right.
And so clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
So I will entertain next a motion regarding festoon lighting, and I probably will specify it as the Uncanman modification lighting.
So I can make another motion to approve the festoon lighting on the corner by Innovasi, the 4-pole description that we anticipate being $110,000 or $115,000.
I second.
Thank you. Any comment?
I will make a comment. I mean, I have seen the swell turn a little bit in terms of the thought of delaying this. My personal opinion is that lighting will be a marquee entry to our village. We're talking about $110,000 or $115,000. I've heard Jody with Tesca say that she is not remotely concerned that the ultimate lighting plan will not be, conducive to the initial start of that plan. I've heard this group talk about the fact that this needs to be a public use underneath those lights, and I absolutely wholeheartedly agree that would be the case. And I feel like things can get derailed, master plans can get derailed, and I firmly believe that doing the festoon lighting today and getting started and creating something marquee in our community that creates a new vibe is the right thing to do, and do it now. Don't wait 7 years.
I will comment on that. I believe this is important to our community. I think it is important to our business community. I believe it is important to the people living in this community, and that is why I stand for that. And that will be my comment. If there is no more comment, I will call a vote.
And this we're voting on with lights?
Yes.
The Inkerman
Four
plan.
lights.
The Inkerman plan.
Yes. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
No.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item number 17.
I'm confused. We voted unanimously for no lights, and then whatever.
No. We voted.
Where are we now?
We voted unanimously for everything except the lights. That was our first, for an item that was
And that was
regarding-
overridden by the second vote?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we voted
Sorry.
on resurfacing the asphalt paragraph all the way to, without installation of this, all the way to spaces at intersection. That's our first vote. The second vote was voting specifically on the festoon lighting.
Essentially, it allowed you to consider the essential
Okay.
project and approve or deny the essential project, and gave you the space to separate those two.
Exactly.
because-
That
So
wasn't explained
following
well.
your thought.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for this discussion, lively discussion. I'm tired. Number 17 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction contract with Chicagoland Paving Contracts, Inc. of Lake Zurich, Illinois, for the Village of Lake Bluff 2021 pathway resurfacing improvement project. Could I please entertain a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. At 10 a.m. on Wednesday, September 8, 2021, the Village of Lake Bluff opened bids for the 2021 pathway resurfacing improvement project. 4 bids were received with the lowest responsive bid of $225,000 submitted by Chicagoland Paving Contractors, Inc. of Lake Zurich, Illinois. The project includes repaving the village-owned asphalt path in the Tangley Oaks subdivision, as well as patching areas of the other asphalt paths in the village. The village's fiscal year 2022 budget includes $380,000 for pathway improvement. The village intends on utilizing the remaining budgeted funds by increasing the amount of patching within the contract and contracting separately to remove areas of brush along the Robert McLaury Trail. The village engineer is recommending the award of a contract for the 2021 pathway resurfacing improvement project to the low bidder, Chicago Paving Contractors, in the bid amount of $225,000. Any questions, discussions, and concerns?
So this is $150,000 under budget?
Correct.
Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about the plans for that, at least what we've talked about doing in the other locations and how close we get to spending all those funds?
Yeah, this is about 150,000 under, so that's the good news for the evening on budget wise anyway. And there are some areas like it says in the memo that will probably increase the patching quantity inside of this contract to address more of the path along East Sheridan Road, which is deteriorated. And at this price, I think it's a good idea to do a little more in that path. There's also Public Works has been cutting back the brush on the McClory path, north of the train station quite a bit. I think we even had an accident and a claim to deal with. People were saying that it was, obstructed views. So if we can, we will cut back the brush a little more and maybe cut out a couple of kind of viewing areas where you can see from Sheridan Road back into the path, and just kind of cut back some of what's been growing up over the past 30 years. But I don't anticipate we'll touch anything more than 300,000 overall on this, and we'll probably have about 80,000 just left unused.
And the areas on the north side of the McClory Trail are really dealing with, there's larger trees that roots are pushing up through the trail. If you've been north, and I know you have, and others as well, but you've maybe bumped your bike on those, and it's been about 15, 20 years in the making. And Jeff and I went up there and looked at that and said, we'll leave the trees be, but we'll do the repairs, so.
That's a good thing. Thank you. Any more comments?
I was just, Drew, if we have that extra left over in the budget, then does it just roll over to next year? It stays in the same bucket and it just rolls over?
If that's what you choose to do with those funds. Yes, we talked a little bit about the finance committee, that there's times when that projects do come under budget. And so if there are funds left over at the end of the year, then you guys can have a conversation about rolling them either to the capital fund or other activities. Yep.
Any more comments? So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, item 18, our trustee report. Is our trustee report. Do any trustees wish to make a report this evening?
I do. I met with the Shields Township assessor the other day to go over all of the appeals that he and his office are doing in the business park. And he extended an invitation to everybody to come by and see the work they're doing. It's really important. And it gave me a greater understanding of how much work his office, with an incredibly small staff, is doing to realize property tax revenue for the village, and that he is truly an advocate for us and for the communities that he represents. So I encourage everybody to go. His name is Scott Helton, and he is looking forward to meeting you and answering any questions that you might have. The process is ongoing right now, and there are substantial files. It's inches thick that he's dealing with on many properties in the business park. So I hope you'll take him up on that invitation. It's very worthwhile.
Say his last name again.
Helton.
Thank you. I had the chance to meet with Scott Helton when I was first elected, and he made the offer to come and visit the community for explaining the process of the EV assessment.
Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting idea. During COVID time, it's probably not a great idea, but I think we should take him on that offer to come and work with the community. At the same time, I've had a few people at the county willing to do the same thing, so we might want to do something a little bit wider for our community.
Yeah. And he's also talked to me today about something else, but also perhaps at some point make a presentation to the board about certain things, so we can understand a little bit better about what he's doing. But I just hope everybody will take him up on it, because it's important for us to understand the process, because it happens every year on these commercial buildings, and it's really fascinating.
Another item of concern in our community is our tax bill.
Right.
And the tax rate and the assessment, and people have a difficulty with that, so it would be a good thing as well.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
the commercial entities have the means to fight, and they do. And so my hat's off to him and his staff. They're doing a great job.
Thank you. Any more reports? Thank you. Next is item number 19, the consideration of the August 23rd, 2021 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion and concern? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
We do have a closed session? Okay. So I understand that we have a closed executive session today. Might I get a motion to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you. Sorry.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Thank you. This concludes the open part of the village board meeting. Thank you to anyone in attendance, and have a great evening.
It's a little early for the weekend.
Yeah.